that morning it started raining.
All right, be careful what you say that, Jeff. You're on camera.
I'll make it look like my hand puppet.
All right, guys, we'll talk a little bit. Obviously, the first thing we're going to cover is feed after talking about all that. We do have some short dated $4 calls, some of you do, that are obviously more likely to expire worthless, which isn't a bad problem to have, but it is what it is. What I'm looking for, as I said early in the grain meeting, is if we can see what the market does here the next 2 or 3 days in terms of how believable they see things. I think you're going to have a hard time getting back to $4 until at least September, until we see the September crop report. And we could see an overreaction. What would I quantify as an overreaction? If I saw, I think the low in December corn's been 362 and some change. We see something between 350, 360. I would consider that an overreaction. Okay. If you look at the last calendar year, we didn't spend a lot of time under 350. Okay, right there, harvest a little bit, but didn't spend a lot of time. So what do we do at that point? At that point, I think we start looking at what we've done some in the past, selling some out of the money puts. Use an example. Let's say corn's 350. We can sell 330 puts and buy 370 calls at a revenue neutral price. 330 best case, 370 worst case, either of which works well in terms of corn feed needs for the year. Marginable, but usually with this group that's not that big an issue. It is marginable though below 330. Well, it's marginal from the day you put it on, but if late November if we're below 330, they're going to hand you futures at 330.
And you're talking about the December?
Yes, going straight to the December, which will get us out. We'll know almost everything we need to know on the production side for sure by then. Very similar type strategy in bean meal. I'd like to cover at least, in fact, at those levels, we'll probably go out a little further than half. We'll probably start looking to get our needs covered for the marketing year. If I can own corn, somebody offered me $330 today for 12 months worth of corn, I'd take it. If you offer me $300 or less for meal, I'd probably take it.
You can't raise it for that. Way below the cost.
After yesterday, though, the onus is going to be on the bulls to try to rescue this market and carry it because it's hard to argue with the USDA for very long. I mean, you're going to have some crop tours going out, and they're going to say, I can tell you right now, I'm not even on the tour. I'm going to say bad in Indiana and Ohio with a lot of variability. Then you're going to hear variability, and Illinois will be the key word, and then you'll start hearing less about variability as you cross the river. That's your tour for you without having to march in another cornfield. That's what they're going to tell you. You can't tell what that corn Eastern Indiana is going to do. They're going out next week, Pro Farmers, and it's too early. We'll be able to tell on those years that are behind. Probably since the last month, the one thing that's changed quite a bit is I've been very impressed with the demand side, the pork demand side. We just keep absorbing 10, 12, 13% more pork than a year ago. Of course, versus a year ago, we know what last year was at this time. But we're starting to see a shift. I don't know if you guys are seeing it or not, but I'm seeing it. I've been
cheap enough they'll eat it.
I've been high proteining on the high protein, low carb diet now for about 3 or 4 months. And I'm telling you, if this were the meat case at the local store, 4 or 5 years ago, it's beef, pork, chicken, okay? Now it's beef, pork, and chicken, and it's everywhere you go. I don't care where you go. People are looking at it saying, I'm not going to pay $10 for a steak when I can have 2 thick cut pork chops right there for $4.50. And we've talked before about demand. It's an aircraft carrier. It turns super slow, but once it turns and people start to say, hey, this isn't too bad. I've been eating boneless ribs. My kids, we're like boneless rib junkies now.
How's that been working for you?
I got that smoker. I've lost it.
You're just eating more meat.
I eat a lot of meat, but you can do that on your diet.
Help your child. I'll disagree on it. You can eat too many ribs.
Well, there's no barbecue sauce on it.
I don't think that
I use lemon pepper.
It could be those things stick with you.
What's the volume of beer that it takes to wash these things?
That's the trouble.
There's
The slower you cook it, the more beer you can
It's an equation.
You know, so on the domestic demand side, there's definitely a shift underway, and has been underway. If you look at the, we'll talk about exports in a minute, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but exports are obviously down versus a year ago, but we seem to be absorbing them very well right now. We're also seeing, if you go the last 3 or 4 months, and even year to date, if you want to go back that far, if you look at the University of Missouri's sow and gilt slaughter data, guys are being pretty responsible out there. There doesn't seem to be a big push for production. It's being reflected in terms of sow prices. It's being reflected in terms of feeder pig prices. You know, everybody seems to have enough and not want any more put in new buildings. So we're seeing what I think is a kind of an equilibrium. You know, we last 2 or 3 years, I mean, first we're overproduced, then we didn't have enough, and now we've kind of settled into, particularly on the demand side, everybody, we don't spend near enough time talking about demand because it's hard to quantify. But when you look at what we've been producing, and what I mean, we just said, I didn't see the overnight, so I can't tell you what it did, but as of yesterday, it's still the highest since last December. We keep notching new highs in pork prices, cutout values. And when you're doing that with that kind of production, you know, you say what you want, but demand is strong for pork. And it's probably going to stay strong because it's going to be a while before beef comes back to compete with it. Beef price has been getting hammered. The cutout on beef's been getting hammered.
You think they turn the attitude of the retailer?
Yes, and you know how slow they turn. We bitch about it all the time when it's working against us. Well, now it's turned the other way, and it's going to be a while before it turns back against you again. So we're seeing really good demand right now, which kind of leads me, you know, to when we start looking at, you know, we've been 50% sold out to April for eons, and I keep wanting to push it up there, and it'll get up about where I want it, and it'll back off and get up. But until that demand element starts to show some weakness, I don't feel like we have to jump the gun and go out there and push even harder on our hedges.
The only scary part to me is that we really had the big run, and I go back to 98, 99, and it went down to where it did because it could, because of just packer capacity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was no reason for it to get that cheap other than nobody could.
If we have that happen, it's going to be in 17, all of 17, not this year. We're not
I don't
running out
know,
of capacity.
but to me, that's, you know, you get in, that's the.
And the margins right now, packer margins are great again. I don't care if they own the hogs or they don't own the hogs. They're great margins for them. So you give them great margins. They got plenty of capacity right now. I mean, they've barely been running on Saturdays. I mean, they could run hard if they wanted to, but they don't hurt their margins. They're getting enough. But if you look at October hogs right now and the discounts and the deferreds, they've built a lot of bad news in already. If you look at, you know, where we're at right now is seasonally between when I wrote this August 11th, the end of the month, in the last 3 or 4 years, cash hogs lost 21 and some change last year, 10 and some change, 15 and some change, almost 17. In 2010 was the anomaly, it was only down 85 cents. You're looking at a $16.55 discount right now. So how much of that discount do you want to sell? I don't want to sell any of that discount. It's already there. There's only 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are already, you know, 2 of them are good at this point. Can't get any worse or can get better. So, you know, I'm still holding off. I'd still like to bump up to that 65, 70%, which is about as comfortable as you guys ever get anyway, because of what you're comfortable selling production out through that time frame. I'd like to get that done. I could, you know, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen a week from tomorrow, but I've kind of been waiting. You know, like I said, it got up above 67, and I said, you know, I think they're going to trade 68.50. I think is what I sent out was my goal. And they didn't quite get there, and boom, again. And now yesterday, bang, they were back up again. Of course, the longer we go, you know, I use the analogy too often at the bar after midnight. You know, the less picky you get. So the longer we go, and we get closer and closer to fall, you know, maybe that 68.50 becomes just a test of the 67.12 or whatever that high was we made the other day. But I'd like to get that extra 15-20% on. Yeah, yeah. And it's like Memorial Day, Labor Day, it's always, the buying's over a week to 10 days ahead, ahead of that, so we're not that far away from kind of a peak. And when I think you're gonna see, and if you look at seasonal pork cutout charts, it's about the time it starts nosing back down again. So we really need to get something done here in the next 10 days, 2 weeks.
What year was it, 3 years ago, that there was just a counter seasonal where we went through the fall and it rose instead of dropped? Is that 12?
Based on this,
13?
Jeff, I'm guessing it's 10. That's when we were only down 85 cents.
Because there was a fall in there that we kept thinking, why need to be selling it? And
I
instead,
think it was 10.
for some reason, it was counter-cyclical.
Yeah. But it been written down, didn't happen, in my mind. So I don't know.
And I write nothing down.
Exception of Joe and Robert here, you all can sympathize what I'm saying, so.
Write nothing down.
Exports.
Hillary.
Yeah. No, she has it, she burns it and erases it afterwards, there's a difference. We finally got to the point, exports this year, we're down about 5% from a year ago to date on pork. If you want to look at across the spectrum of the proteins, 9% on beef, 9% for broilers, 21% for turkeys. The turkeys, and particularly the turkeys, it's, the avian flu is a huge part of that, and to an extent the broilers, even though we never really did have an impact on broiler production, they still got banned. But we're down 5%. We had a horrible first 3 or 4 months of the year because of the West Coast pork strike just killed our exports during that time period. We're getting into the months now where we kind of cleared that all out. We're starting to see exports. I think the last ones they released a couple of days ago were off a couple percent. It wasn't very much versus a year ago. It was pretty close. We've had pork, we've had the dollar rising, we've had Russians banning meats from countries that don't like them. We've got a slowdown in China. We've got the avian flu. So there's been quite a mixed bag of things that weigh on overall meat protein exports, some of which are getting cleared up. The port issues are being cleared up. Dollar's kind of slowed its gains down a little bit. The Russians are still banning us. That ain't going to help. China's still slowing down. And we'll see what happens this fall with the, a lot of people think, some of the people at the USDA anyway, think that, the reason the broilers, by and large, never got affected is because they're too young to get it before they move them out, whereas the egg layers are more susceptible to it. But we'll see. Still working on vaccines, or whatever. But that's going to be an issue for a while, specifically if it flares up again. Pork production, it's obviously on the way up. I did say through June, which is our latest data, pork exports were still 23% of production, or 20% versus 23% a year ago. So they have slipped a little bit, but by and large, the domestic side has picked it up. I just think right now that we're going to continue to see a shift, domestically versus exports a little bit because of the currency. Brazil's starting to export pork pretty big. The Europeans in particular are getting a lot of demand. I read a story the other day where they said, China, we didn't talk about China here, but they've seen a big cut in their pork production and subsequent rise in prices. But a lot of the export business is going to Europeans because they won't take anything that has red token meat. Although we have channels to export them some, but the currency is too much for us to overcome as well. So we're seeing the Europeans get a lot of the Chinese export demand. So, which, we're gonna have exports, we're gonna have them around, but it doesn't hurt to have a strong domestic market because we sometimes we forget about that other 80%. You can increase that other 80%, 5%. That's a lot of exports you have to lose to make up that 5% on the domestic side. And I just think, and maybe it's just my perception, I think the cutouts have kind of backed it up. I think this last 8 weeks really started to see a shift. I'm starting to see it in restaurants, more different types of pork being offered. pulled pork all over the place. Thick cut pork chops, which, you know, one of my favorites. So, you know, that is a good thing. I think we're finding, again, if I could use one word, I think we're starting to find some equilibrium without all the wild swings in production, up and down. Whenever you rely on domestic demand, it has a tendency to not be as wild because you don't have to worry about currency fluctuations or people banning your stuff. So a lot more stable environment than what we've seen over the last 5, 6, 7 years in the pork business is what I see going forward. Profits to be made, you know, maybe not obscene PED-based ones, but not the big losses either that we've seen. You know, when corn prices got away, beef prices started to get away. So, questions from you guys?
Follow up on the bean mill a little bit. I mean, what do we really think?
Well, I think it's time, if you
Talk
haven't
about the
already,
demand thing on the beans.
let's talk about basis first. I'm
Okay.
not worried about bean meal futures.
Okay.
Okay, globally, there's gonna be bean meal everywhere. What I'm worried about is being an Eastern Corn Belt hog producer and what that bean meal basis could do. You know, this year we've seen a huge variance between East and West, and it probably ain't gonna be any better next year. Okay, so it's that time of year, and particularly probably a pretty good time after that crop report yesterday. It might not be a bad time to call your friendly neighborhood bean meal supplier, who was told yesterday there's gonna be plenty of beans around, and start checking on basis. What do we, has anybody looked at a bid lately? I mean, just
35, 40 over the last 3.
well, not spot, I'm talking about out in the deferred.
You're looking at the.
Any offers that have been made in terms of a 6, 12-month contract?
Cargill's like a 5 over to 7, and Bunky's gonna be 17.
I think Cargill's advertising like 12.
Yeah.
Is that 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, Cargill's just being real aggressive at Lafayette, which makes no sense to me when they're kind of in a bean deficit area, it looks like, potentially, but they're really
They may have
aggressive.
good crop.
Can you see that?
That crop.
This is from
coming out. of
Have you
West
seen my photo there, Steve? There's only one reason I own that phone. Because it's big and I read it. Well, I have a hard time eating with that.
I know, these charts,
That's.
let's give them a page, okay?
Here would be,
If they're that important.
I'll read it to you.
You can find it again. I may have touched something.
Yeah.
Well,
Cargill
Steve,
Lafayette was 312 for the year last night.
what does that mean, basis?
ADM, well, I don't know, you gotta average that. Nearby, they're 1640 over, and I think that's the October.
Well, let me tell you this, if I can log in a 5
And
over
they're-
to 7 over basis this year, you have to start asking yourself, what are the odds you'll lose $30 from there to the downside? What are the odds you lose $30 to the upside?
On 12 month.
Yeah, like on a 12-month.
Here's what Bungy's saying. Bungy is 20,
You get that
no,
sheet,
18 over
Robert, every night?
Lafayette
Yeah.
for the
Is
year.
that JBS?
Bungie is
Yeah.
18 over,
We used
over Lafayette or 18 over Future?
Stone.
18 over
That's a Bunky.
What a difference.
Yeah.
Bungy for the year book price is 18 over Lafayette for the year book price. So in other words, they're saying our basis is gonna be higher than.
Of course, they usually come down 65.
Well, you pull a lot of meal out of Lafayette. for
Maybe that's
18 bucks,
why.
can't you?
They're not, they can't get out
What-
75.
We're quoted about 11 or 12 bucks.
That may be why.
Well, they can go south, coming back's a problem.
Well,
ADM Frankfurt is worse than Bungy.
That would be bad for them, because they could get off at Lebanon and take 39 or one of those roads that runs to Frankfurt. It's a little inconvenient.
Frankfurt's higher than Morristown by $5.
They have been for a while.
Yeah, you can't buy it out of there anymore.
You know, one of the things when you negotiate, and, you know, I'm not saying you have to be a jerk about it, but at some point you say, look, I'm gonna do this for 6 months or a year, whatever it is, so this is your chance. And I'm going after that. You're not gonna hear from me for 6 months or a year. And, you know, if you want me to pull it by right past your house, I'll do it. You know, if it bobs to my place, I don't care if I buy it from you or not. Because guys up there in Greenfield, I mean, pulling from Lafayette's the silliest thing I ever heard of, but if it pencils, it pencils.
Not
It
much.
pencils.
every once in a while.
But I would tell you
don't
that
think you will.
now is the time. Yesterday is probably a pretty good little ace up your hole, whether you believe it or not. it's probably a good negotiating tactic to say, hey, there's gonna be plenty of beans. I'm not gonna give you 18 over. You know, now whether the turnout be plenty of beans or not, it's up for debate, but it's probably a pretty good leveraging tactic
Right
to
now,
use.
Today there is.
Yeah, today there is. So I would put that on your to-do list, right, pretty near the top. Start looking for an average meal basis for a period of time, minimum of 6 months to get us out to South America. You wanna take another look later and, if they bomb us with beans next year and, we're exporting nothing.
You're not gonna beat 5 over.
Well,
I don't think.
did you say
I
not,
don't
Jeff?
think you'd be lucky.
It's
to
not
get
like
that.
Kansas.
And get 30 under,
I just
like
don't,
what you're
I
talking
understand.
about.
I don't use that language.
It's one of
but
those
you're
things.
right. If I was
Why would I
betting-
wanna worry about this again in February and go, well crap, now I'm at 15 over or
Right.
something. I could have been 5 over.
I would agree with that.
Personally,
Yeah.
if you can get to 5, I would.
Last year, the same thing happened, like in
I don't
August
think you will.
or early September, they give a whale of a bid for 12 months
10 months.
clock, and we missed
I
it.
don't know,
I mean,
but that's.
10 beats 40 and 50 that we have to pay something.
we
I
could
know
book it
that.
for 307
And that's
a
what
year.
I'm
It's like,
saying.
oh,
You may
let's go to
be-
280.
Well, I don't think you need, the futures I would be, I
That's
wouldn't do
different.
the
That's
futures
different.
right now, but I'd do
That's
the
different.
basis.
Personally, I think you're dreaming at 5 over. I may be wrong.
You can ask.
I didn't
Like you
say
say
that.
no. But I think the time is
I'm
right.
saying realistically.
Okay, 10.
You better be, yeah, and what's the, $5 a ton doesn't matter.
So why is that?
I don't know.
Do
Do that. and
I used to say $5 an acre didn't matter, but a lot of people disagree.
Well, what I mean
Yeah.
is if you do the pay 50 over.
Oh, yeah.
So then you're gonna say $5 didn't matter.
Right.
Because I've done that too many times.
Well, it's just like Robert talking about filling up in the fall is basis wise worth a nickel. Yeah.
And by the way,
We always fret over that last nickel, but we always look back.
I'm glad you brought that up because if you're planning on filling up this fall, which there should be, people are gonna need space around here. Probably need to be pretty aggressive on putting those deferred hedges out, earlier than normal. Because I really think in the Eastern Corn Belt and in the Corn Belt wide, I think you could see, spreads, start to come in quicker than normal there at harvest. Because there's gonna be a lot of areas that, that aren't gonna get any corn in the fall. And to force corn, you force the carrying a little bit, okay? So if you're gonna carry it and you're looking for, 30 over and you just bought it off a farmer and the spread between December and July is 22, just take the 22. Like Steve said, what's 5 cents, what's $5? It's money. And you're playing for what? Yeah, you're not gonna get the 30 cent spread. What kind of basis appreciation could you get on that corn?
Right.
More than offset
Big picture.
the carry.
What's the best way to manage our posted bids at this point? Right now, everybody's posted bid says, oh, we're gonna be the same 35, 40 under we've always been. Everybody knows that's not the case, but do you start?
It's
Running
like,
that up
do you
ahead
wanna
of
start an
time?
arms race?
Well,
For
that's-
most farmers, it doesn't matter. They're flat price guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's how I handle it. Guy calls me wanting to sell corn. You tell me your bid is. If he even clears his throat a little, say, but I could pay for you, my valued customer,
Yeah.
you basically wanna buy in the fall.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
But you don't wanna start an arms race either.
Well, and that's why we've resisted bumping our bid up. It's
Yeah.
just the same as Lowe's or,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
no big deal.
Yep, let somebody else be the guy and you kinda trail
But
behind.
almost
them.
everybody in that business would really love to buy it because
Everybody just playing cool, right?
they see ahead.
Are we gonna have a storage shortage in this area?
So why
We'll
would
fill up.
you
I hope
be?
so.
I think if we filled up last year, it'll be nearly the same. I do too, I guess. Guys didn't like the price last year, and I think that made it put.
And those places up there, they, that wanna pull it, they can only take so much and so fast. I mean, it's
But
not,
sure,
they can't take, it's hard for them to take it harvest. But, could you buy corn and sell it for 40 over the July today? Probably. So that's an ultimately problem. They wouldn't wanna do it, but they probably would. Cause some of those areas up there, they may end up paying.
There's not gonna be
80
much up there.
up there.
You go north
There's
of-
not much corn
You
up
go
there.
north of 70 especially.
You couldn't ask for a worse
Ain't
spot
very good.
for a
Right.
crop problem in Indiana or Ohio.
And
Couldn't
you
ask for
you
much.
go up into
You wanna be around
northern
Greenville,
Madison
Ohio?
County and some really good dirt.
Mhm.
Shit. they got
There's lots of
25–30%
Oh.
drop on some really good herd.
There you go.
All species of chickens or something.
I don't know,
So
it's bad.
I mean, I don't know what year you don't tell somebody just to fill up at harvest, but fill up at harvest, and if you don't get the carry that we'd like to get, you'll get the basis that to make up for
They'll
any
be
loss
railing,
of carry.
they'll be railing
Oh, yeah.
corn up there, they got to.
Definitely.
What's your people married to tell them? You have to know.
It's no good.
It's crap.
None
I've
of
been up
them
there-
are all
I've
those
been up there
ethanol
3 times,
plants.
But I mean,
That's
how are they, what is their modus operandi?
You know, you can, if you're a corn buyer, you can always get corn. You can get corn. You got railed spur, you can get corn. Anyway, it's gonna cost you. Pull it, but you can get corn. They're gonna rail in a lot of corn.
How long would a unit train last then?
Take about 70,000 a day, most
Yeah,
of those
somewhere
plants.
60,
Oh,
70, I
that's not
think.
bad.
So what's a day? 100,000 on real?
No, unit
15
train's got
cars,
3.5 million.
350,000
Yeah.
about, isn't it?
3.5 million.
Yeah, 15 is about 52, and 100 is,
3,500 a car, 100
Yeah.
cars,
100 cars. At 3.5 million.
350,000.
150,000 bushels.
So
Little less than
that's a
that.
week.
Yeah.
Send us another one next week.
Hard to get much leverage on a guy like that.
Well, but the problem is in the rail companies, they don't show up,
Yeah.
you know?
Have you talked
Oh,
to truck
I
drivers?
need that car today.
You know, you have your,
There's a
think
whole
truck
lot of
drivers
oil
do?
they gotta haul.
it's gonna increase your rail
They'll show
demand,
up at some point.
for sure,
Yeah.
because the west will have what they always do, and then when you need the extra cars to come east, you know, where are those gonna come from?
Buggy dumps beans off the rail.
Well, they crush what, 110?
No, it's more like
60?
150, 60. But they, by summer, there's 2 crushers, and they'll, you either run or it, so summertime, they'll cut that back to 1. Or when the really good margins are gone, or when
So-
they can't get them.
Let's move out a year. Just what if? So now we got La Nina, what supposedly coming next year. Are we, as a corn buyer, if it gets as cheap as we're talking about, is there positions that we may ought to be thinking about?
But where, let me ask you, your supposition, where do you get that La Nina next year? I haven't seen that.
I guess
I've seen a couple long-range forecasts.
Typically, it
that
doesn't
are
go from
saying-
one straight to the other, typically, without, there's something in between.
There's a couple predicting drought next summer.
They're still drilling over, El Nino's not done yet.
Yeah. Right now, they're saying through spring, there's a pretty good chance it's gonna stick around.
But if you get it cheap enough, I guess you can say, how can, we'll take a chance, we can't
You
lose.
know, El Nino now this year was weird because we couldn't get the jet stream to move. But look at the moisture. Man, they had moisture in spades. Typically what happens is that as the temperatures warm up, they keep moving north, so southern Indiana's wet for a while, then central, and then northern, then it's into Iowa. This year it's stuck,
Yeah.
right in between I-80 and I-70.
Well, it never warmed up.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
didn't
it
warm
didn't
up
get that
to
flip
move
in
it.
it, and that's why it kept California so dry.
But it's a good, it's an indicator of El Nino typically means moisture in the central part of this country. And how
Well, I
much-
was reading, I think the weather forecast is 50% less snow in the eastern half of the country and a wet south next winter. And
So-
then they say fade, the two I read, and I don't know whether they're bullshit or not, but dry next summer.
Well, I can't predict that. I talked a little bit about the corn ratio. I think you're gonna see corn relative to beans gain next year. Here in the United States, we're gonna be, what we should be, is a primary corn grower, secondary bean suppliers, secondary, tertiary wheat supplier, whatever we are there. So you're gonna see that ratio support corn over soybeans. Of course, it doesn't mean corn has to go higher. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to go higher. You know what it takes to raise an acre of corn, okay? And when you start looking at D16, I don't think people are gonna be jumping for joy to price anything under 4. That they don't have to see
$4
for
to
yet.
raise it, and I think there's
So,
probably enough farmers in enough trouble that banks won't loan them money for much less than that.
so I think you're gonna see a little bit of an acreage battle over the winter in that 16 contracts. And it may be something over the course, you know, sometime here at a harvest low, you know, when we may want to start looking at at least some short dated May type strategies that get us out, you know, over the winter, get us the acreage battle, get us out to end April, and then, you know, at least have that in our back pocket, see what happens over the winter. You know, with that much time, typically you're looking at something along the lines of what we're gonna do with this year, somewhere maybe selling some puts, buying a call, telling yourselves that, well, you know, can I live with December 16 futures? You know, if those puts go into money at those levels, why not? Less aggressive on bean meal than on corn.
What's the general thoughts on the hogs from the Packers? Anybody hear anything? Send me more, send me bigger?
We're trying to get 12-month basis bids. They're 2 to 250 worse than they were for the last. Where we were better than normal, because we were now.
It's reversed back to the mean.
Are you back to normal or are you below normal? Now you.
We're trying to get them back to normal in 12 months. They're a whole lot more interested if you got a second year on it, because that, you know, we start to get into the start of maybe some other plants and other.
Just one beef available? Two. Sorry.
Michigan and
Yeah.
Sioux City, Iowa.
Just looking.
So we're thinking about tacking the second year on, trying to get back to something. You buy them, I don't know what they're looking for in the year.
Are you hearing any major disease issues?
You're watching the PERS reporting project. Ackerman keeps jumping up and down about PERS and what I don't know what it is.
Probably our house.
That's what I heard.
Everything else is in there.
Well, you guys have anything else you want to discuss?
You gotta go to Muncie and be a cheerleader.
Wow.
Tough crowd.
If there's a crowd.
Okay.